Hey, it's your tutor Courtney Waterman, lover of anime, manga, and math. And this is another session of Tutor Me Senpai. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're jumping into a fourth grade topic, understanding fractions. If you have any questions about what we see here today, or maybe even some of your own homework, remember you can always put them in the comment box below or visit me on Facebook at Tutor Me Senpai. If you find this video helpful, remember to leave the like. It really helps the channel. And while you're at it, hit the notification bell and hit the subscribe button so you know exactly when I drop my next videos. Well, without further ado, let's talk a little bit more about fractions. So the first question is, what is a fraction? So when we talk about fractions, the first thing I want you to think about is groups. So for example, let's say you had a big old bag of money, right? The group would just be the big bag of money. So let's say coins. This would be a big bag of coins. That would be your group. Another example. Let's say you had a toy chest with a bunch of different toys. You know, just a bunch of different toys. That would be another group, a group of toys. Another example, let's say you had pizza, right? Everyone loves pepperoni. Maybe not. Let's say you had pizza. Well, pizza can be a group if you think about all the individual slices coming together to make one big pie. That big pie is your group of pizza. So when we're talking about fractions, we need to first understand that we're going to be talking about groups, right? Big groups of bags of money, boxes of toys, or slices of pizza. Big groups. Now, when we want to talk about a small group or a small portion of that bigger group that we have here, let's say, for example, pieces of pie. If you want to talk about, let's say, 3 of these, or maybe for a toy chest, we want to talk about all the trains that are in this toy chest, or maybe the money. If you want to talk about all the quarters that's in this bag of money. That is what we consider a fraction. It's a small amount of the bigger group that we want to focus on, a fraction of the bigger group. These 3 pieces of pie or pizza would be a fraction of the entire pie. The amount of toys would be the whole group, but if we want to focus on just the trains that are in this toy chest, that's a fraction of the amount of toys that we have. If we want to look at just the quarters, that's a fraction of the amount of coins that is in this money bag. So when we're looking at fractions, that's just a small portion or a small amount or a small group of the larger group that we're trying to focus on. So now that we talked about what is a fraction, how do you write a fraction? Well, let's focus on this first example here of our bag of money. Let's say our bag of money has 30 coins, right? 30 different coins. Right? But we only have 1/4 out of all of those coins. So we have dimes, pennies, nickels, but we only have 1/4, right? Well, a fraction, if you're going to write it and we want to figure out what fraction do we have of these coins that are just quarters, we would have to first write this bar here, right? Every fraction you write is going to have a bar. And this bar separates the top number from the bottom number. Now this top number, we call that the numerator. And this bottom number, we call that the denominator. Now what do these two things mean? Well, let's start with the denominator. The denominator is going to be the easiest one. That's just going to be the total number of what we're looking at, the total group. So in this case, if we're looking at the bag of money, how many coins we have, the total amount of coins will be our denominator. So we would write that here. The denominator goes in the bottom, the numerator in the top, and the denominator is just going to be the total amount of coins that we have. So the numerator is just going to be whatever we're focusing on. So in this example, if I want to know what fraction of the quarters we have make up our bag of money, well, that's just going to be how many quarters out of these 30 coins do we have, right? Well, remember, we only have 1/4 for this one. For this example, we only have 1/4 in this big bag of money, so the numerator is just going to be 1. Because we only have 1/4 out of the entire bag of money, which is 30 coins. So our big group of 30 coins only has 1/4. If we had 2/4, then this numerator would be 2, right? Because we want to focus on how many quarters do we have out of the entire bag of money, which is 30 coins. So the numerator tells you what you're focusing on. We're focusing on quarters. Now, if we had, let's say, 10 pennies, right? So if we had 10 pennies, well, it doesn't matter how many pennies we have. If we're only focusing on quarters, this doesn't change. But if we focus on pennies now, so instead of 2/30, we have 10 pennies out of 30. The numerator becomes 10 because our focus shifted from the quarters to the pennies. So the numerator is going to be what we're focusing on. The denominator is the entire amount that we have. Everything in our big group. Okay? So remember, focus on, this is the entire amount. And you notice that the denominator didn't change even though we shifted because we didn't go away from our 30 coins. Now that we know the denominator is just going to be the big overall group of whatever we're looking at, you might be tempted to think that we can't use fractions when we only have one item. Well, that's not necessarily true. And I want you to go back to our original example of the pizza pie, right? Normally we only have one pie. So you might be thinking, well, we can't really have a fraction because we only have one, so we can't break that down, right? Well, if we broke this into equal slices, keyword is equal, they have to be equal. Broke them into equal slices, now we have 4 slices. And now our fraction can be made out of 4 slices instead of one pizza pie, right? So if we're going to separate these into equal pieces, we can have more and more slices. And therefore, we have different opportunities to have denominators. So instead of having a bag of money or maybe like a toy chest with different items in there, there are times where you can have one big group and you can just separate that one group into different pieces. But make sure that they're equal. So in this case, if I wanted to eat, let's say 2 slices of my pizza, well, now I can say, well, how many slices do we have? In this case, we're not looking at the 4 slices, we're looking at the 8. So I draw my bar and I put an 8 in the denominator because we have 8 total slices. That's how many we have total. If we count up all of these, that's how many slices we have. Now, how many are we focusing on? We're focusing on the ones that we ate. So these shaded ones are the ones I ate. I was hungry. So now, how many of those do we have? 1, 2. So we put 2 here. So this would be 2/8. That is a fraction of pizza that I ate. How about the fraction of pizza that I didn't eat? Well, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. Notice the denominator still doesn't change. We're still looking at the same amount of total pizza. But we're shifting where our focus is on. Instead of looking at what we ate, we're looking at what we didn't eat. 6/8. Now that you're familiar with writing fractions, or numerator and denominator, and don't forget your bar in between that separates the top from the bottom, let me talk about equivalent fractions. Now, going back to the pizza, right? Let's say I broke this pizza into 4 equal slices, right? And I was really, really, really hungry. So I ate 2 of these big slices, right? What would be the fraction for this? Well, we put our bar. How many total slices do we have? 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And how many did I eat? Because I was really hungry. I ate 2 of them. Well, what happens if I cut these into more slices? Remember, trying to make them as equal as possible. Forgive me, I'm a little shaky. But let's say I cut these into equal slices. But I ate the same amount, right? How many slices did I eat this time? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And how many total slices do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, I ate the same amount, but my slices were a little bit smaller. So I didn't eat more pizza, even though it says I ate 4 slices here. I ate the total amount was the same, but because the slices were different, the fraction looks a little different. Well, these are called equivalent fractions. When you break up an object into smaller pieces, but you don't change the shading, you get a fraction that takes up just as much space, but is broken down into little parts. So it looks a little bit different, but it means the same thing. This is 4 slices out of 8 slices. This would be 2 out of 4. Let's say I had another pizza, and instead of having 4 slices, I just cut it down the middle, and I wanted to eat half of it. Well, this would be 1 slice eaten out of the total 2. Well, if you notice, this is half of this pizza, right? And we said that's equivalent to this, and this is half of this pizza. So that means this is equivalent to these as well. 1/2, 2 over 4, 4 over 8. All of these are equivalent. They take up the same amount of space, but they look a little bit different. So don't get confused. If they ask for an equivalent fraction, you might just have to add a little bit more slices if you're working with pizza. Now, pizza is not the only thing you can do that for. You can do it with a lot of different shapes. So let's say you had a rectangle. You broke it in half, right? Well, from that half, I wanted to just shade half of it, right? But then I wanted to break these into smaller pieces. Well, I still shaded the same amount. So originally it was 1 over 2 because it was 1 out of the 2 pieces. But now I broke it up into smaller pieces. So now I'm shading 2 out of the 4. Just like the pizza, I'm breaking up into smaller groups. Equivalent fractions. As you add more equal partitions or more equal sections, you're going to get a fraction that looks a little bit different but means the same thing. Now that we talked about what a fraction is, how to write a fraction, and even what an equivalent fraction would look like, let's get into our questions for today. So as you see, we have a group of fruits over here. And if we were to look at these fruits, we can see that we have some bananas, some oranges, some apples, we have a single pear. But this would be a group of fruit. Once again, a group of fruit. So if we wanted to find out the fraction of the pears, right? What is the fraction that the pears make up out of this total group of fruit? Well, the first thing we have to do is put our bar here, right? Put our bar here, and then we count up what is our total number of fruit we have. What is our big group number? Well, we have an apple. Well, we actually have 4 apples, so we have 4 apples, right? Plus, how many oranges? We have 3 oranges, right? So we have 3 oranges. How many bananas do we have? We have 2 bananas. Good, good. And how many pears? We have 1 pear. And do we have anything else? Apples, oranges, bananas, pears? Nothing else? All right, so we add up all of these. That's how many total fruit we have. And this is just going to be 10. So we have 10 fruit. Well, if 10 is our total group of fruit, well, we know we have 10 in the denominator. Once again, the bottom number, the denominator, is the total amount of fruit or items in your group. Now, if we want to figure out what fraction of the fruit would be pears, how many pears do we have out of our 10 fruit? Well, we only have 1 pear. So our fraction for this one would be 1. How about if we want to focus on apples? Well, the number of fruit hasn't changed, right? So we still have 10 fruit total, but how many apples do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll have 4 apples out of our total 10 fruit. How about bananas? Once again, the number of fruit hasn't changed. But our focus changed from apples to bananas now, so we have 1, 2 bananas. How about oranges? Once again, total fruit has not changed, but our focus has changed, and now we're looking at oranges instead of bananas. So how many oranges do we have? 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 oranges out of our 10 fruit. So now that we looked at a group of fruit, how about we go into another type of example where we have one item that's broken into different parts. So if you look here, now we have 3 shapes that we're going to be working with. But instead of just focusing on the overall shape, we broke them into different parts and then shaded some of those parts. So we're going to figure out which fraction of the shaded region or the shaded area of those shapes do we have. So looking at that first one, we have 4 total parts, right? We broke up our rectangle into 4 total parts. So of these 4 total parts, we know that 2 of them are shaded, right? Well, if we know our total parts is 4, once again, that goes in the denominator. Yes, we're only talking about one rectangle, but we broke it up into 4 parts. 4 is our denominator. And if we're looking at what is shaded, well, 2 of those are shaded. So 2 out of the 4 that we have total are shaded. So our fraction for this will be 2 over 4. How about our circle? That's broken into 4 parts as well, right? And how many of those are shaded? We got these 3 here. So if we wanted to write a fraction, well, yeah, we only have one circle, but how many parts do we have? That's going to be our denominator. 4 parts to the circle. And how many of them are shaded? 3 of them are shaded. So our fraction for this one will be 3 over 4. How about our last one? We have this square looking box here, right? And it's just right down the middle, 2 parts. And only 1 of them are shaded. So 2 parts, even though there's only one looking square here, 2 parts and only 1 is shaded. So our fraction for this one will be 1 over 2. But I want you to notice, we broke this into 4 equal parts. We broke this one into 2 equal parts. But half of this is shaded. Like half of this is shaded. So these are equivalent fractions. 2/4, 1/2 equivalent fractions. Well, I hope you were able to follow along with today's example. Remember, if you have any questions, you can always put them in the comment box below or visit me on Facebook at Tutor Sempai. If you'd like to see your own homework on this channel, remember you can tell me about it there as well. If you find this video helpful, remember to leave a like, it really helps the channel. And while you're at it, hit the notification bell and smash the subscribe button so you know exactly when I drop my next videos. Well, that's all the time I have for today. I really hope this helped with your homework and I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week. I'm Courtney, and this has been another session of Tutor Me Senpai.